the vowels aren't counted technically as a part of the alphabet in Hebrew?
They aren't part of the alphabet. The Hebrew, I think I want to answer that in class.
Okay.
But would you ask it once we get started?
All right, because that confused the hell out of me.
Well, they're not. The ancient Hebrew was written with just consonants, and some of the consonants show a place where a vowel would be.
Okay.
It wasn't until the 5th century, hello sir, it wasn't until the 5th century when the Nazarenes began to try to vowel point so that they could preserve for all time how these words were pronounced. The vowels were actually invented.
Okay. So it's more like a cue versus an actual part of the alphabet.
The original alphabet did not have vowels. So what's your name? Tim. I've got you over here somewhere, Tim. Daniel Allen. Is that you, Jim? Yes. Yep. One of these is for 10. It's this one. Here you go. Okay. And so I put you there because you and your wife are sitting together.
I appreciate it, sir.
Kevin?
She may not make it today, but otherwise she'll be here.
Right. All right. Very good. Well, we're at 11:30, so I want to just say a word of prayer. And is anybody bothered if I pray? Okay, good. Because this really isn't a religious class, but I'm feeling the need to pray because I've never done it before. So just bear with me. Lord God, we thank you for the great opportunity to study your word, to look into the Hebrew language, and we pray that you give light to our eyes and understanding to our hearts. Lord, carry me where I'm inadequate today. Help me to explain thoroughly. Lord, help me to stay on track. Help me to stay within the time boundaries. Lord, help the students to engage with interest and to be excited at the end of the day about learning the Hebrew Bible. Lord, we thank you for the opportunity, and I pray in the name of the Most High. Amen. Amen. Okay, so I'm Chad Davis. If you're in the Army and you're not comfortable calling me Chad, you can call me Chaplain, but I'm totally cool with Chad, and that's half the reason that I'm in civilian clothes. Okay? Want this to be a comfortable learning environment. I'm really thrilled and honored that you guys would say, hey, I want to spend a year with Chad and learn the Hebrew Bible. So hopefully we walk away from this with long-term relationships and mutual trust, and it's going to be a very good thing. I want to talk about the approach to this class. Come on in. I think you're right there. John Moreno. The approach to this class is going to be unusual because I've taken biblical Greek and I've taken biblical Hebrew, and I found them very hard to assimilate and get to a level where I could use them. And so I want to do something that you typically won't have done, and that is I want to spend the first third of every class period learning inductively. Okay? We're going to spend the first third of every class period in a biblical text, and it's okay if you don't understand everything about it. It's okay if you don't understand anything about it today, because you're going to understand all of it by the time we get done. And I think that by studying the text, you will inductively pick up as much or more than you will from the outline-driven charts and rules that are the textbook. Is this making sense? For example, I was talking to Carolina before class. When she first learned the word agua in Spanish, her native language, she didn't know how to spell it. She couldn't identify what the names of the letters were. She didn't know how it fit in a sentence, but she was able to communicate to her family that she wanted it. So we learn language this way, and then afterward, when you're 4, you're 5, you go to school, and they start applying the deductive stuff and showing you the categories, and these are the parts of speech, and this is how nouns and verbs work together. Well, it's easier to learn nouns and verbs and adjectives and how they work together if you can see them at work in a text. So we're going to spend a lot of our time in the biblical text. The course overview is something like this. There are 36 chapters to this book, and I chose what I think is the best curriculum available. The Basics of Biblical Hebrew Grammar by Gary Credico and Miles Van Pelt. If you want to, you can get a couple $100 worth of supplementary material that they've produced. Video lectures and vocabulary cards, and that stuff may be helpful to you. But honestly, it may not. It may not. Sometimes more isn't always better. Something else I'm going to do that is unorthodox is I'm not going to test you on vocabulary. Okay? But you're going to get exposed to loads of vocabulary. I think when you learn Genesis 1 through 5, you'll learn 60 words or so that you never had to study a flashcard. And chances are, if you learn them in the text, you'll remember them a long time. Whereas I can learn 1,000 words of vocabulary on the little white flashcards, and it doesn't take very long, and I've forgotten half of them. Because they don't really stay if you learn them in that way. That's the traditional method. It's a good method. If it works for you, use it. I'm going to let you learn vocabulary your way. Whether you want to listen to it over and over again, there's a CD available for this book that has a vocabulary, but I'll caution you, they use a different pronunciation than we're going to use. I'll explain that later on in the class today. Or if you want to use flashcards, flashcards will help. If you're really into flashcards, let me know. I know a good technique to get them into the short-term memory and then into the long-term memory, and I'll help you with that. But I want to try it a different way, and that way is we're going to recite the vocabulary together in class for 3 weeks. And the reason is because when it's time for you to start doing an exercise where you might need to know the word Adam, I want you to have already heard it for a couple of weeks. Because the exercises will have grammatical concepts that you've got to apply. That's not the right time to be learning the words that are in the exercises. So I want to expose you to the words that are in the exercises 2 weeks early. I want to get you hearing and saying those words, even if you can't identify the letters that they're made of yet. I want to get you saying and hearing those words for 2 weeks, so that when it comes time to translate your first exercises and you've got the 2-word sentence and you know the words, now you'll be able to apply the grammatical concept without having to struggle at the same time with that mess of Hebrew stuff in front of you that's overwhelming when you first see it. Let's look at Genesis. Let's look at Genesis here. Oh, I'm logged out. I had a feeling that would happen. Got to log in. Yeah. Well, you have it in front of you on a piece of paper. So while I'm bringing this up for the camera, if you would, just take a look at Genesis 1 through 5. Is that a lot of information? If you can't make sense of it right now, it can be overwhelming. You can go, oh my goodness, I can't read this sentence. And that's all right. We want to demystify that by letting you learn the words before you ever have to translate a sentence with the words in it. Believe me, if I opened up the text of the Bible to some chapter that I hadn't seen before, I would have to really step back and go, oh no, what words here do I recognize, what words do I not? So to know the words before you're asked to do the exercises allows us to focus on the grammar that's being taught. Okay, so vocabulary and grammar are taught separately. So I'm going to be talking to you about chapter 3 vocabulary today. In the syllabus it says chapter 2, but to my surprise, there is no vocabulary for chapter 2. So we're going to start with chapter 3's vocabulary today. Second thing I want to talk about is something called the learning gap. If you get exposed to the Hebrew alphabet today, don't expect to get it today 100%. Hey, sorry, Gavel. I think I got you over here. Don't expect to grasp it all and remember it all in one day. But by the time we're in chapter 4, this will be second nature, and you won't be thinking about the letters. You won't be thinking about how to write them. You won't be thinking about how to identify them. It'll be second nature. There's a little lag time. For some people, it might be, older folks like me, maybe 6 weeks before. If you're in chapter 5, by the time you're in chapter 11, chapter 5 is second nature, you're not worried about it. That's okay. So if you got a little fog, my Greek professor called it the fog. If you're in the fog, you're a little bit confused about this week or last week's concepts, just keep on trucking. Raise your hand, ask questions, call me on the phone, we'll talk, go do some research on the internet, try to find the answer. I'll point you in the right direction, save you a lot of time wasted if you're looking for those things. But know that it'll take you a little while to catch up so that what was taught today is second nature. Questions so far? Okay, I'm very excited about this. Very excited about this.
Sir?
Materials. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say, whoever provided this for us, is thank you so much. This is expensive,
Yes.
and I really appreciate whoever gave the money for us.
Okay, so let me just say a plug for who did give the money for that, and that is the Army Chapel Tithes and Offerings Fund.
Praise God.
People go to church, they go to chapel here on post, they give their money as an act of worship. A small portion of that goes to the RSO for us to run ministries. One of the ministries we're running is Biblical Hebrew class. And we bought the curriculum, and depending on how many people actually show up today, I may have to buy some more. You're welcome. All I ask in return is that you come all year long and do your very best. Struggle with Hebrew until it's not a struggle. Now, if you go to the field, because I got at least 5 soldiers in here, maybe more by the time the day's over. If you go to the field, you go to the field. If you PCS, we can't help it, right? I will try to work through your operational commitments. If you miss 2 weeks because you're lazy, I'm going to be less motivated to help you. I probably still will. Okay? If you miss 2 weeks because you had to go to the field, totally understand. If you go home to see your mom you haven't seen in 5 years in Alabama, I get that. Try to keep up. Try to do the work. Yes, I will help you. If the electronics cooperate, that's a big if. If the electronics cooperate, after doing some editing and cutting out all the dumb things I say and the mistakes that I make, then I will put these out there on YouTube for you to be able to just go back and watch it as many times as it takes. You go, you know, I'm just confused. What was he talking about? The Vav consecutive, the Vav conversive. What is that? I'm lost. I'm going to go and watch lesson number 14, and now I understand it. Okay? So I'm going to do my best to do the extra work and do some editing and get that out on YouTube. Expect about a 10-day lag from the time we have class until it's on YouTube. There was something important I was going to say, but I cannot remember what it is. Okay, the workbook. If you start reading the workbook, you will be intimidated. Mm-hmm. Okay, this workbook is meant for graduate level seminary students, and it is their lot in life to suffer. Okay, and I believe that the authors of this book want the graduate student to suffer. Actually, what they want you to do is remember the information. So, for instance, the homework for tonight, you're not going to be asked to do this, in the book is to write the Hebrew alphabet 100 times. I'm going to ask you to write it 20 times. Okay, so I nearly died when going through this workbook because the amount of work in the workbook is tremendous. And it weared me down. It was difficult just because of the volume. I don't need you to parse or break down the parts of 50 verbs. Maybe 10, just so that you get an idea, so that I get an idea. Okay, now I remember what I was going to tell you. This is not a 4-credit class, so there is no pressure for you to do well on tests. There are some. There's some quizzes and some tests, but the reason we're doing the quizzes and tests is so that you and I, so Tim and Chad, both know where Tim stands on how much he's learned, right? If you do what you might consider poorly on a test, you get a grade that would fail you in school, don't worry about it. You don't have that kind of pressure. What you have is, oh, I really better study this concept. I was doing great, got an 85 on that last test, but this test I got a 45. There's some things I don't understand. That's when you call me on the phone, or I call you on the phone. And Chaplain Reno, how do you say your first name?
Jessica.
Yeah, just like it's spelled. Okay. He says, Jessica, hey, I'm concerned that you don't understand this concept. You want to get together and talk about it? And she says, no, I don't. I said, okay, great. Here's a link to a video that I think would be helpful to you. Because I learned a lot on YouTube University. Mm-hmm. I had Hebrew in seminary. It was a long time ago. And I got A's, I legitimately forgot it all. I had to learn it again. So I've been through a number of textbooks. I found some great curriculum, both on the CDs. I found some curriculum on the internet from a gentleman named Bill Barrick. I'll give you links to his stuff probably all year long. And better quality instruction than I got in the classroom at seminary. So this is a good thing. Okay, I'm going to try to pass on all of the good parts of that to all of you. Okay, Jim knows the Hebrew alphabet. Who else has some experience with Hebrew? Anybody? Jessica does. How much did you take?
I took 2 semesters.
Okay. And was that long ago? Yes? Okay. So we're starting kind of at the beginning?
Yeah, I have been reading and practicing, but yeah.
Wonderful.
But
Nobody
don't
else?
ask me to say anything.
Andrew Higginson has enrolled in this class. Andrew has 2 semesters of Hebrew and 4 semesters of Greek. I asked him, did he know the alphabet, and he just started to rattle it off. So he's going to miss the first 3 weeks because he's in school, basic leadership course, but he's super motivated, and I have a feeling he will already be where we are when he comes back in week 4, but I will help him. If you feel like you're behind, just tell me. I'm not going to know anyway. I'm going to figure that out as we go. When I say, hey, Nolan, identify this letter for me, and you go, that's not the name of the letter. Just in case you're wondering. Yeah. Okay, so as to the homework, when you do the homework, we're going to do less than the book calls for. I haven't got time to grade 100, right? I can't look at 100 lines of the Hebrew alphabet for 10 students. I don't have that kind of time to do that, right? I do have some folks that are going to help me. I've got a rabbi who's coming here, be here in 2 weeks, an Orthodox rabbi, and he's already agreed. If you guys play Stump the Chump and you ask me a question I can't handle, I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm going to write it down. And then I'm going to go over to his office, and though he's junior in rank, I'm going to say, would you please help me answer this question? He'll answer the question for me. I'll come back and I'll sound like the expert the following week. Also, Major Malik up at the hospital, she told me she has taught many boys and girls how to read Hebrew in preparation for their bat mitzvah or bar mitzvah ceremony. So I've got help, and that's good. What I want you to do, and your first name is Regis?
Yes.
Is that okay if I call you Regis?
Yes, sir.
What I want you to do, especially Regis, because for the moment, the 2 of you are sharing a book.
Mm-hmm.
For the moment.
I think
We'll just see how many books I've got and how many I've got to order and how long it takes them to get here. But I will get your wife a book if she's coming to class. Okay. What I want you to do, and you'll thank me the next time you want to study Hebrew, is don't write in your workbook. Okay? Because if you write in your workbook, I'm going to ask you to cut the page out and give it to me. Instead, photocopy your workbook for your own use, not to pass out to students, but photocopy the workbook for your own use, or just do your homework on a plain sheet of paper. Because I want you, next time you want to study biblical Hebrew, to have a workbook and you can open it up and do those exercises. If you want to cut your workbook up and put it in a loose leaf binder, that's also an option. Right? If you want to 3-hole punch it and put it in a binder, like Carolina's got a binder there, and then you want to turn your paper into me and I'll grade it and give it back to you and you put it in your binder, that works. But it destroys your workbook. So you decide. Workbooks are not cheap. They're really high quality. They're great. And I would photocopy it. Because I've got, like, I think 3 copies of the Basics of Biblical Greek workbook because I didn't learn this lesson. Right? I didn't learn the lesson. I filled out did the workbook in the workbook, turned it into the professor, and at the end of the year, I've got a bunch of papers that need to be stapled together. I don't have a workbook anymore. And so I bought it again, and then I bought it again the next time I was studying Greek. So you do it however you want. It's your book. But I need you to turn in your homework to me. So you can either photocopy it, probably the best thing, or you can do your homework on plain paper. That'll be better once your handwriting gets good. I've watched looking at some of the old stuff that I've written down in Hebrew, and the way that I was writing the letters at the start, get this, guys, was way too fancy. Okay? It was way too fancy. You'll see some fancy Hebrew letters if you go looking at stuff. Am I right, Jim?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with little flames on the ends of the letters. Look, I drew these Hebrew letters as simple as I can because my goal is not to impress. I want a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now, for Nolan Hurt to know this alphabet and to be able to read it and to write it. So I've watched over time how I became either you could call it sloppier or simpler. And I focus, when I write Hebrew now, I'm focused on simple. I want it to be clear. There, as you can see from your Genesis handout and from up here, there's all kinds of little stuff. What is that? Right? What is that? What is that? That's a munah. You don't need to know that, but there's all kinds of stuff on there. If your letters are goofy, if your letters are fancy or sloppy, it's going to be hard to see what you're writing. Hard for me, hard for you. So I'm going to focus on simplicity, at least at first. We'll add all those vowels, and we'll add all those accents. This textbook, by the way, let me tell you about one of the main strengths of this textbook is it does not use transliteration very much. And what that is they kind of sound out the Hebrew word with English letters and symbols. And so you kind of have to learn a code to pronounce the Hebrew words. I have 4 textbooks total. 2 of my other textbooks are loaded with transliterations. This one doesn't. They explain it in the first chapter. There's a couple of them in there at the beginning, but then you're reading Hebrew, and that's what I want. So because of the lack of transliterations, that was the number one reason I chose this book. But what I had to give up is this book doesn't teach the accents very much at all. What it does teach is incomplete, and it's in the last chapter of the book. Realistically, hey, I already love you guys, but I don't think everybody's going to be with me in week 37. Right? Just realistically, somebody will not be here. Somebody will say it was too hard. Somebody will PCS. Somebody will go to the field and never come back. I just know I'm going to lose somebody. It's just how it goes. Happens in college classes where you pay thousands of dollars. Somebody drops before the end of the term. I would hate for you to not get that information. So I'm going to teach that information as we go, the accents. And they're really helpful for reading. Super helpful. Once I understood the accents, I was like, gosh, I needed to know that years ago. But it's not heavily taught in most books, and it's in the very last chapter of this book. So I will teach you about those as we go along. I'm talking fast. I think I've covered the book, the workbook. You don't need this now, but you will want this later. This is the Biblia Hebraica Stuttgartensia. This is the critical edition. This is what scholars use. This is what seminaries use. It's the Hebrew Bible. It reads right to left, as Hebrew reads right to left. And it's a little bit pricey. Okay? You don't need it now. After Christmas, we'll decide whether we need them in class. For the time being, it's just too much. You need this, not this, right now. Okay? And also, you're going to need a lexicon. Lexicon is a fancy word for, who knows? Jacob? Dictionary. You're going to need a dictionary. Okay? And there's a lot of them out there, and I think my choice is going to be Holiday's Concise Lexicon, Hebrew Aramaic Lexicon. Yes, ma'am?
I do have, but it's in I have a program.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You can get Brown Driver and Briggs and most of the modern Bible software that you can get for free on the internet. That's great. But as we progress, as we figure out how many students we're really going to have, at the right time, when I want you to start using the dictionary, we'll probably buy those lexicons. We'll see. Funds have to be available. My boss has to think it's a good idea, and I still have to have students. So we'll see what happens when we get there. Those are things that you're going to need. So to the title of this class. The title of this class is Biblical Hebrew in Plain English. Oh boy. I don't know if y'all believe in the devil, but I think the devil owns the electronics. Jessica, where'd you go to seminary?
Andrews University.
Ma'am?
Andrews University.
Did they use fancy words like post-positive continuous? Did they use categories like jussive? Did they use words that don't make sense in English, words that don't make sense in English?
Actually, when I studied Hebrew, I didn't know English.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, what I want to do is avoid language that makes you think about the language instead of the thing I'm trying to teach you. And I found that grammarians in Greek and Hebrew have a lot of categories that aren't helpful. Okay? Maybe they're helpful to the professor who's teaching the class. Is that a question? I'll be right with you. I'll be right with you. For instance, I was listening to a particular professor teaching Hebrew, and he said the al particle is collocated with the main verb. And I was like, collocated? What does that mean? Oh, co-located. See, that does not help. I'm going to try to strip off some of the academic layer of terminology. We're going to have to deal with it. It's in the textbook. But I'm going to try and strip that off. And so I'm going to try to use the simplest English descriptions of what the various categories are. Oh, I'll tell you, and I'll refer to the book and say the jussive is But I'm also going to say this is the realm of possibility. When the verb is used this way, it just means it's a possible. I would, I should, I could, I hope, I will. If that hadn't happened, it's not concrete, it's just possible. And that's what you need to know. You don't need to know the word cohortative or the word jussive. I don't think that's helpful. Now, all of the books contain stuff like that, but I'm going to try to make it plain English. Sergeant Honeycutt, you had a question?
Well, I've just been looking at the letters on the board and trying to find each letter based on the way they look. I see at least two that I don't see here.
Did I make up some letters?
I don't know.
Oh,
All right.
The
You
vowel
got this
point.
one? You got this one? This
Sure.
copy?
I don't. I was going by what's in the book. So
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to get into Genesis in a minute, but just for your sake, Joey, let's walk through this, shall we? Did anybody study the letters before coming? Good. Okay, here we go. You ready? Aleph. Say it with me. Aleph.
Aleph,
Bet.
Bet,
Gimel.
Gimel,
Dalet.
Dalet,
Hey.
Hey.
Vav.
Vav,
Zion.
Zion.
Het.
Het,
Oh, very good. Tet.
Tet,
Yod.
Yod,
Kaf.
Kaf,
Lamed.
Lamed.
Mem.
Mem,
Nun.
Nun,
Samech.
Samech.
Ayin.
Ayin,
Hey.
Hey,
Sadi.
Sadi,
Kuf.
Kuf,
Resh.
Resh,
Sin.
Sin,
Sheen.
Sheen,
Tav.
Tav.
Y'all there? Let me take a look at what you're looking at.
well, I know what I was looking at this, but it says the handwritten form of this is that.
Okay, so on the sheet that I emailed you, the handwritten form, you're going to need to be able to write it. You're probably not going to be able to type it. Okay? You're going to be right. You can get Hebrew fonts on your computer. Let me know if that works for you and then come train me, because it doesn't work for me. You're going to have to learn to write it by hand. So on the sheet that I emailed you, on one side, it's a picture of a page out of the book. On the other side, I've just drawn, and for a while you'll be drawing, not writing. I've just drawn the Hebrew character. Does that answer your question? Yes, sir.
So I watched a few videos on YouTube to get better at my pronunciation. And they talk about vet, kaf, and fe as additional letters within the characters of the alphabet.
We're going to cover that today.
Okay.
We're going to cover that today, and I need to stay on track if I'm going to cover all the. I promise you, you will not leave with any ambiguity about these Hebrew letters. Okay? Well, I'll present it all to you, and then in 3 weeks you'll understand it perfectly. Okay? To that point, we are going to use modern pronunciation as much as possible. Now, there are various dialects in different parts of the world, and so there is more than one modern pronunciation. But this book is written with what they are calling biblical Hebrew pronunciation. Okay, it does explain it in the first chapter. We're not going to use that. We're going to use the modern pronunciation as much as possible, and this is the reason why. Someday, you may want to have a conversation with a Jewish person about a text of the Bible. Wouldn't it be great if you sounded the words out the same way that they did? Wouldn't it be great if they said a word and you understood it and didn't have to go, oh yeah, that's that weird way that other people pronounce it. Now, my two favorite Hebrew professors use what they call biblical Hebrew pronunciation, and they insist on it, but I'm not going to. My primary motivation is to be able to read the Hebrew Bible and discuss it with people. Some of those people I want to talk to are Jewish people. And so, for instance, the vav is pronounced with a V sound. Okay, I think you've got an example in the slide that I gave you.
So are all W's pronounced with a Z?
This page right here, I modified it. I changed the vav to a vav as in valve. But the ancient pronunciation was wah. And they call it wow instead of vav. Okay? You might think, gee, why did he do that? That's going to be hard. It's going to be way easier this way, trust me. Okay? The truth is, can you really get back to an ancient pronunciation? No, because an ancient pronunciation is a moving target across the centuries. We know that how the Masoretes pronounced Hebrew in the 5th century AD, because put vowels down for us and helped us with that. But go back to 1400 BC. What did Moses actually say? I've got no idea how Moses pronounced Hebrew. He didn't use these letters. These letters are from Babylon from the 6th century BC. They're Aramaic script. Moses couldn't read this, even if he wrote it. King David, if he opened up Psalm 91, he couldn't read it. If he opened up the 23rd Psalm, which David wrote, David could not read it because he wouldn't recognize any of the letters. Probably wouldn't recognize any of the sounds, just based on the way that languages change over the centuries. I think it is best for you, in the long term, to use a modern pronunciation. This will become easy in 2 weeks. Everybody good? Wonderful. Let's take a look at Genesis. Okay, this is a lot of info. Don't worry about what you don't know, okay? But remember, Aleph, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, Tet, Yod, Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samech, Ayin, Hey, Sadi, Kuf, Resh, Sin, Shin, Tav. Now, looking at Genesis, we have a Hebrew letter right here. Who can tell me what that is? A bet. A bet. Notice the little dot in the middle of the bet? Bet has 2 sounds. Okay? Bet is a Bagad Kefat letter. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But bet has 2 sounds. If that dot, called a dagesh, is in the middle of it, I'm going to call it a dagesh, though. That's a word you're going to need to know. If that dagesh is in there, it is a B sound. Without the dagesh, it's a V sound. Okay? There's certain times when it will lose that dagesh, when you won't expect it to, and I'll explain those rules as we get to them. But just be aware that the dot changes the sound, and it's a B sound or a V sound. So this would be the V, but I wanted a pure letter on the board there. Okay? How about this letter?
Resh.
Resh. Resh. Resh is the letter R, essentially. And it's a special letter. It's called a guttural. I'll talk about that later in this lecture right here. Then we have Aleph. Aleph is
Silent.
silent. It's a silent letter. I kind of think it's a vowel holder, a place to put a vowel, but it's better to think of it as a silent letter. Okay. And then we have the Sheen. Notice that the dot is on the right side of the W shape. The dot on the right side is the sh sound. The dot on the left side would be the s sound. Okay. This is a yod and tav. Tav. If you use the ancient pronunciation, they're going to say tau. If you call it tau, I won't get mad at you. Okay? If you start pronouncing it like an S, because that happens in modern Hebrew, I'm going to ask you to stick with the T sound for class. Okay? Depending on what synagogue you go to or what Jewish people you're talking to, they may take that final tav and make an S sound or a TH sound. But for class, it's going to be a t sound.
I think I understood all of it except for bet. So if bet has the dot, it becomes bet.
No, other way.
Bet is the name of the letter. Ba is the sound. Without it, it's a v sound, as in vowel.
So
Just
when
like
we're
ba.
reading it in Hebrew, so it doesn't turn to bet, it turns into a V sound.
It's just a V sound. That will always, we're going to always call that letter, that consonant, bet. Bet, bet, bet. Okay? So let's just looking at Genesis 1. We're going to read, I'm going to read, I'd like you to repeat after me just the first sentence. The word we just kind of walked through is Bereshit. Say that? Bereshit. Bereshit. We'll talk about syllabification in 2 weeks. About how to divide syllables in 2 weeks. Don't worry. Bereshit. Bereshit. It means in the beginning. Sound familiar? Bereshit, bara. Notice the bait. Notice the dagesh in the bait. Bara. Okay. Bereshit, bara, Elohim. This is a hard word. The emphasis is on the last syllable. Elohim.
Elohim.
I heard an Elohim, which we'll talk about in a second. One more time, everybody. Elohim.
Elohim.
Okay, check it out. Typically, when you transliterate it, when you spell it with English letters, people will put a big capital E here. And so, English speakers are going to say Elohim. They'll put the emphasis on the first syllable, which is incorrect, and they will give it a full vowel sound, which is incorrect. I will teach you why next Tuesday, but notice there's 2 little dots here next to these 3 dots. That's a half vowel. We'll talk about that next week. This word is pronounced Elohim. You say, well, no, I think it's Elohim. Okay, great. Just make sure you put that emphasis on the last syllable and say the first syllable fast, and you'll figure out why it's really not vocalized. Elohim. Elohim. Say that. Elohim.
Elohim.
Okay. That's the word for God. Yes, it's a plural. No time to talk about that today. Et
Et.
ha-shemayim.
Ha-shemayim.
Va. Et.
Et.
So that's together. Va-et.
Et.
Spoiler alert. That's your word and right there. Va. Okay. The heavens. Va-et ha-aretz. Va-et ha-aretz. Together. Bereshit.
Bereshit.
Bara.
Bara.
Elohim.
Elohim.
Et.
Et.
Ha-shemayim.
Ha-shemayim.
Va-et
Va-et.
ha-aretz.
Ha-aretz.
Great job. That's all we're going to do in the text today. Do you have to memorize that today? No. Do you have to understand everything on that screen today? No. Pick up what you can pick up. Remember what you can remember. You're going to see this text for a long time. Okay? And when we move on to the next text, I promise you, no one, you will have it down cold. I will be able to come and wake you up in your house at 2 a.m. in the morning and say, what does Genesis 1 through 5 say in Hebrew? And you'll just rattle it off.
That might just be fear.
But yeah, but you'll get it right because we're going to do it enough times that it gets into your long-term memory, and it will be the canvas. It will be the canvas so that when the paint of the grammar comes along, it'll stick to something. Right? When we teach you the grammar for how to understand that verb bara right there, you will get it because you'll understand it in this text. That's my plan. Everybody good? Back to the letters again. Let's do these one more time. Aleph.
Aleph.
Beit.
Beit.
Gimel.
Gimel.
Dalet.
Dalet.
Hey.
Hey.
Vav.
Vav.
Zion.
Zion.
Het.
Het.
Tet.
Tet.
Yod.
Yod.
Kaf.
Kaf.
Lamed.
Lamed.
Mem.
Mem.
Nun.
Nun.
Samek.
Samek.
Ayin.
Ayin.
Hey.
Hey.
Sadi.
Sadi.
Kuf.
Kuf.
Resh.
Resh.
Sin.
Sin.
Sheen.
Sheen.
Tav.
Tav.
Excellent.
So it's kind of like German, the W's a V sound.
This is a S, and this is an SH. Seen, sheen.
I'm talking when we're talking about Vav and Tav.
Vav is a V sound today. So yes, German.
Because I see the W. I mean, but I'm going by the English pronunciation. So
All good, all good. I gave you a sheet where I had changed that, and I'll show it to you on the slide in a minute. Let's move on to the slides. Okay, here they are again. Aleph has no sound. Aleph is silent. It is known as a guttural. We'll get to gutturals in a few minutes. It's a guttural, and for now, just think of it as a silent letter. We're going to add a whole bunch of rules that apply to the 5 letters we're calling gutturals as we go. Those rules are important. If you learn those rules, Hebrew will be easy. For now, Aleph is a silent letter. Bet is B as in boy. Bet. Everybody? Bet. It's also pronounced vet without the dagesh. Okay? Gimel. Gimel. What English word does gimel sound like?
Camel.
Camel. Look at the camel's neck. Okay? Gimel. Okay? G as in God. G as in God. Gimel has a G sound. Okay? Dalet. Dalet?
Dalet.
D as in day. Hey.
Hey.
H as in hay. Vav.
Vav.
V V as in valve. Yes, I went in and I changed the slide from the one that came with the curriculum. Okay? Your book is going to say something else. I want you to use Vav. V as in Vav. Zion. Z as in Zion. Chet. Now this word, also a guttural, this letter, also a guttural, requires a little breath in it. I'm overdoing it. Okay? Modern Hebrew, they almost say it just like an H, but we've got to distinguish. This is a hard consonant. Chet. Chet. Practice it. Don't sweat it. If you're not saying it to my satisfaction, in 10 weeks I'll be concerned. Today, good. Okay? Chet. It's a guttural. Aleph is a guttural. Tet. It's just a T sound. Tuh. The reason you have two T's is one of them used to be a softer, an aspirated T sound. Thuh. Modern Hebrew, it's just a T sound. Yod. 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 I'll talk about Yod later. We'll talk about Yod when we get to vowels. Yod is a consonant, though. Okay? It's a consonant. Kaf. Kaf is a letter that has two sounds. A beged kafat letter, and we'll get to that in 5 minutes. Okay? For now, just say Kaf as in king. I'll tell you though, spoiler alert, it has to have the dogish to be pronounced like this. Kaf with the dogish is K. Kaf without the dogish is K. Just like the chet. Okay? Lamed. L as in lion. Lamed, please.
Lamed.
Lamed. Okay? Great. I'm trying not to talk about Greek all the time. If you had Greek, lambda. Same thing. Almost shaped the same. This one you can't see it on here, but it comes above the line. It's the only Hebrew letter that has like a little antenna, a little periscope above the line. You'll see that in the exercise in your workbook. All right, moving on to the next slide. Men, as in mother. Mother. It is a labial. M. Noon. N as in now. Samek. Ayin. Ayin is a silent letter. Not really, but we're treating it like a silent letter. It's actually like a stop. Like you stop breathing. Who watched The Lord of the Rings? Okay, who didn't watch The Lord of the Rings? Really? Half of us. Okay, so there is a character, Smeagol, whose nickname is Boom. It is a swallowing sound. Boom. It's not really pronounced. Ayin is a stop. For instance, it's the first letter in the word translated into English as Gomorrah, capital G. But it's Gomorrah. It's just a stop. You stop the flow of air. We're going to treat it until Christmas, maybe longer, just as a silent letter. Okay. All right. There's more to it. It's a guttural, and we need to know more about it. For now, it's a silent letter. Pei. Pei has two sounds. One of them is P as in pastor, I like that one. The other one is F as in faith. I like that one too. Okay? With the dogish, it's Pei. Without the dogish, it's Fe. Okay? Kof. Kof is the only letter that goes below the line. This tail extends below the line where all the other letters stop. Notice how it's not connected. How did I draw that? Notice the kuf. There's a space. It's not a big P. I used to think it was like a big P. It's not connected. It's a kuf. Okay? Resh. Resh is sometimes a guttural. Seen is S as in sin. Don't like that one. Sheen, SH as in ship. I like that one. And finally, Tav. This is Tav. I would say Tav. And it's T as in toy. Even when we try to use the ancient or the biblical pronunciation, the books are seldom consistent. So I'm going to go with Tau and make it a T sound for the purpose of this class. Who's ready to sing? Oh, you didn't know that's part of this?
Let's do it.
Shh, Jessica says yes. So Jim was entertaining me while I was wrestling with the devil and his electronics. Jim was entertaining me with various songs that have the Hebrew alphabet, And some of them are pretty cool. Actually, I want to get that one with the letters going by and try to get that up on video for next time. And we cannot access YouTube from this system, so we'll get creative and get that because it's really cool. But I don't want you to be entertained. I want you to learn and remember the Hebrew alphabet forever. So we're going to sing it to the tune of Yankee Doodle. Chances are that's an old song. Some people in this room don't know the tune to Yankee Doodle, and so I am willing to humiliate myself publicly and sing it for you alone first. You don't know Yankee Doodle? Who does? Somebody does, right? Tim, you know Yankee Doodle? Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls, well, don't do that, because that's not probably going to be okay anymore. However, it works great with the Hebrew alphabet, and even now, after all this time, if I'm lost in a lexicon somewhere, a dictionary somewhere, and I can't remember if pay comes after or before resh, I'll catch myself singing the Yankee Doodle in my head, and all of a sudden I know where I am. You ready? Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, and Vav, and Zayin, Chet, and Tet, and Yod, and Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samak, Ayin, Hey, and Tzadi, Kuf, and Resh, Sin, and Shin, and Tav. Easy. Easy. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I will not quit my day job. Don't worry. So, I want to sing it twice more. I want you to sing it with me. Okay? Because it needs to get into your long-term memory. Visually, you've seen it. You're going to sing it, so you'll hear it, and you'll say it, and later on tonight, you're going to write it a whole bunch of times. Okay? Here we go. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, and Vav, and Zayin, Chet, and Tet, and Yod, and Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samak, Ayin, Hey, and Tzadi, Kuf, and Resh, Sin, and Shin, and Tav. One more time. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, and Vav, and Zayin, Chet, and Tet, and Yod, and Kaf, Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samak, Ayin, Hey, and Tzadi, Kuf, and Resh, Sin, and Shin, and Tav. Okay, that's a mnemonic. You should be able to pick up the language. That way, the alphabet will permanently lodge itself in your long-term memory. And later on, years later, you might find yourself needing that. If you're looking for a word in a lexicon, you can't remember what letter this letter you're looking for comes before. I'm stuttering, but you get the message, right? Sing that song in your car. Please don't horrify your children or bother your spouse with it, but sing it and sing it some more, because this really needs to get into your long-term memory as soon as possible. By week 3, I promise you, if you do your homework, if you sing the song a little bit, you're going to have no trouble with this alphabet. Who's got the alphabet already? Great. Regis, you want to give us like the first 5 letters?
Yeah. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey.
Awesome. Awesome. Anybody else? Who wants to jump in with letter number 6? Jim Pierce, who has the alphabet down. What do we got after Hey?
Now I'm gonna choke.
Okay, Tim, this one?
Zain, or Vav, Zain, Het. I'm choking. Het. Tet, Yud, Kaf.
Great. Who else wants to jump in after cough? Anybody? Carolina?
Oh, I completely lost myself.
Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samak.
Sonic? It's Ayin. Ayin. Well, very good though. Very good. Lamed, Mem, Nun, Samak, Ayin. Somebody? Okay. Hey?
Tzadi, Kuf, Resh, Sin,
Shin, Tav. Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, let's move on. Wonderful, wonderful. Let's move on. Okay, Hebrew is written from right to left. You saw when we were in Genesis, I started over on this side, right? We started moving that direction. Hebrew is written from right to left. For some people, I guess this is a really big problem. I really don't think it's going to be an obstacle to you once you've accepted that that's how it is. Okay? Many languages read from right to left. So let's go right to left. Aleph, Beit, Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Chet, tet, yod, chaf, lamed, mem, nun, samech, ayin, pei, sadi, kuf, resh, sin, shin, tav. Great. Everybody got it? Right to left. How y'all feel about the alphabet so far? Comfortable? All right. Now, Now, 5 letters have a final form that is different. By this I mean, if the letter over here in the regular form is the last letter of the word, it has a different form, a different shape. Okay? So we have kaf, and kaf is very often the last letter of a word. That is final kaf. If you want the Hebrew term for that, that is kaf sophit. Kaf sophit. Okay, that is the final form. And here's an example. This is the word derek. Derek. And it is means road, it means way. And the final form of kaf is this kind of elongated, upside down, backward L. Okay? To write kaf, final kaf, we'll do it like this. And it usually has a couple dots in it, but let's just go with that. Final kaf is like this. Final kaf goes below the line. Okay? This is in your book, and it's on page two. Okay. The next one is mem. The final mem. Learning to write M in final mem, that was a challenge for me. It's really not that hard though. The final M is actually simpler than the regular mem. The final form looks like this little block with a little, it's called a tittle on it. This little horn on it. Final mem, mem sophit. Don't worry about the transliteration. I'm sparing you that kind of pain. You don't need to know the transliteration.
I think with this word and that where you're going with the final form mem, I think that's where you really find out that ayin is silent because you don't hear it at all. Ayin's there, you don't.
Okay, so the way that word is pronounced is
But it's the guttural.
There's a vowel underneath that. We're going to go with silent letter, ayin.
Yes.
There's a vowel. You hear the vowel, the comments. The final mem, though, all I'm talking about right now is the shape of the final mem. And I'll draw it like this. I draw a little box. I kind of cut the corner here, so it's diagonal, and I give it a little antenna, a little tittle. That's the final mem. It's sloppy, it's garbage, but that's what you get from me. It's the best I can do. Right? On the chalkboard. Yes, ma'am.
Is there a reason why they changed the shape when it's at the end?
I have no idea why. No, I don't know. But that tells us that's a final form. It might be that you're reading a Hebrew text that doesn't have any vowels and it doesn't have any, there's no, what you might call a hyphen, a makef, there's no vowels, there's no accents, just consonants. That helps you identify an end of a word, for sure. But I don't know for sure why Hebrew does that. I just know that it does, and this is the final form, the final mem. Joey and Nolan, can you guys see this over there on the other screen? I'm pointing at this red block right here.
Yes.
Okay, very good. The noon is often a final letter, and the final noon looks like the regular noon, except it doesn't have that little foot on it, and it just goes down.
So for these final forms, are there only these 5 letters?
Just these 5 letters.
Okay.
You see, they all share one thing, except for the mem. They all share one thing in common. They all have a tail that goes below the line.
And is that in our text?
It is, page 2. Final noon goes below the line. Okay, it's just long. It looks like a vav, but it's longer. And got another little chart where we have little letters that look similar. Everybody see that?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's final pay. Final pay. You would think the pay is going to kind of curl around to the bottom, but it doesn't. The final pay just goes down below the line. It has a tail. The last one is a final sade. And basically, if you'll just draw me a long Y shape with a long tail, you don't have to put any little squiggles on it there. That's what we're looking for the final sade. Now, in your text, they may be a little more complicated than that, because they have a nice font, you don't have to get all these little angles and decorations right. Right? If you look at the printed text here on page 2, block 1.3, just give me what I'm drawing here in your written form, and that'll be enough. Questions about the final forms? Super. You'll see them over and over again in text, and that's how you will remember them, is that you'll remember them in words. Okay, now we're going to talk about something called Begad Kefat letters. I'm going to erase all the letters except for the Begad Kefat letters. Okay. Did I get them all? There they are. There's 6 letters there. These 6 letters, they're just called Begad Kefat letters because somebody has just sounded out a word that they made with these 6 letters in a row. Begad Kefat. Okay? Begad Kefat. It's not even a real word. It's just it's a word that they made up to teach Hebrew and English. But these 6 letters, the Begad Kefat letters, take a Dagesh forte. Take the dot, and they have most of them have a different sound. There you have bait. We talked about bait. We saw the Dagesh in Genesis. Bereshit gives it a B sound if it has the Dagesh. Without the Dagesh, it has a V sound. V as in boy, V as in vine. Notice the Dagesh in red gives you the B sound. The bait without the Dagesh has a V sound. Again, don't worry about the transliteration. I'm not going to try to teach you that. I think it's an extra layer you do not need. So with me, bait has the B sound and the V sound. With the Dagesh, it's B. Without the Dagesh, it's V.
So what's the first word of Genesis?
Bereshit.
Bereshit.
See it on your...
It has the Dagesh. Why does it sound like a B instead of a B?
Because the Dagesh
is
the B sound.
Got it.
Bereshit. Bereshit. Without it, it would have been Vareshit. Okay. Gimel.
I think I'm getting it.
Gimel has the propensity to take that Dagesh, and that is, if you see the Gimel with the Dagesh, it's pronounced the same in modern English, or modern Hebrew rather. It's pronounced the same. It's just, can you distinguish this GH sound? Go, gassed. I just say gassed. My English is such that to me there's no difference between saying God and gassed. The G sound is the same to me. Historically, it's been aspirated. I'm not going to worry about hearing that.
This makes page 1 a little confusing because the sound that it gives you here says here that the sound is with the Gimel.
With the Gimel.
Or, not with the Gimel, with the Dagesh. The Dagesh.
But I'm saying I'm not able to produce a different sound. Right? When I say gassed, it's just the same G. If I say aghast, it's the same G. It's supposed to be aspirated. There's supposed to be breath in it. That's what the H is supposed to convey. But in modern English, do we say that? How about the word ghost? Who can hear the H in the word ghost? Not me. So, don't worry about the pronunciation difference. Now, the Dagesh has another meaning we'll talk about when it's time. But so don't worry about the difference in pronunciation for the G. Okay, this is probably why I won't be allowed to teach Hebrew at seminary, because to me, it's just a G sound. Ghast, ghost, God. Maybe this is harder, maybe this is softer. For our purposes, if you pronounce it and I can tell it's a G, you're good to go. Okay? The chet and the hey, I'm gonna correct you, because they're not the same. But the gimel with or without the Dagesh to my ear and to my lips is the same. Everybody good?
Yep.
Can anybody say it where you can tell the difference? No volunteers. Okay, great. Dalet. Dalet. What is the D? D as in day. Now this is an easier one to understand in that it is pronounced like the TH sound, the. The. I'm not going to be a stickler for that either. It's a duh sound, D as in day. There may be a time when that's important for you to be able to distinguish one word from another. Be aware though. Remember later that without the dogish, D is aspirated like a TH sound. DH sound to me, I can't think of a single English word where the H isn't silent. Buddha. B-U-D-D-H-A. But I don't hear an H in Buddha. Right? If I hadn't seen it written that way, no way would I have guessed it needed an H. I can't hear that. Yes, because your hand up? I thought you were raising the question.
No, I'm just writing it.
Very good. Very good. Okay, the cough really does matter though. Okay? The cough without the dogish is a h sound. I'm exaggerating that. I'm doing it a little bit harder than it needs to be done, but it is aspirated, so like a KH. H. 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 With the dogish, it's just a K. Okay? With the dogish, it's just a K sound. So we've got K as in king, or H as in Bach. Bach. Is that an exaggeration? Yes, it is. But you can hear it there, can't you? Bach. All right, good. The pay. The pay is pronounced severally. It's pronounced P as in pastor with the dogish. Without the dogish, it is F, like in alphabet. Alphabet. By the way, we don't say alphabet in Hebrew class. We say Aleph Beit. Aleph Beit. Okay. And then you have the Tav. The Tav is a T. T as in toy. But it could be that aspirated TH sound, thin. And in modern Hebrew, sometimes it's an S sound. Okay, but we're not going to try to incorporate that S sound. That's according to some dialects. Let's put it that way. Okay, some dialects. So these are your Bagad Kafat letters. The reason they made the word Bagad Kafat up is so you can remember what 6 letters it is. Bagad Kafat. Questions? Sometimes the dogish will represent a doubled consonant. I'll show you when that happens. Okay? It will represent a doubled consonant. And you'll be able to divide a syllable knowing that there's one dalet in this syllable and a dalet beginning the next syllable. And that sometimes the dogish will help you to ascertain that, or indicate that actually. Bagad Kafat letters. Okay, let's move on to Aleph and In the book, there's no slide here for this, but 1.5 on page 3 talks about pronouncing Aleph and Ayin. For today, they're silent. Everybody good? Know that it goes deeper than that. Today, it's a silent letter. It's a placeholder for a vowel. As we go forward, we'll explain that. Gutturals. There are 4 Hebrew letters that are gutturals, and then Resh. Resh is sometimes a guttural. Tell me what is this letter, please, Nolan. You can't see where I'm pointing.
I know that one. Hold on. Iron.
Ayin. Tim, what you got here for this letter?
Hold on. Is it Chai?
It's Chet.
Oh, okay.
Chet. We're going to talk about the difference between Chet and Hey in a minute. You can see they look alike, don't they? Joey?
Hey.
Hey. And come back over here. Jacob.
I don't remember that.
Aleph.
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 Very first one.
Very first letter of the alphabet, yes. So these are gutturals, and they are supposed to be pronounced in the back of the throat. Remember when I was talking about Gomorrah and Ayin is a stop? It's hard to do that except in the context of a word. These consonants, these 5 consonants, Resh, Ayin, Chet, Hey, and Aleph, they have some rules associated with them, which I'll tell them to you, but I don't think that they They make a lot of sense right now. They prefer A-class vowels. They reject the dogish. You cannot put a dogish in a guttural. That's important. Okay? And they also reject a vocal shava or shava. We'll talk about that next week. Don't worry about it. Just memorize for now these 5 letters. These are gutturals: resh, ayin, chet, he, and aleph.
So you said no doge. What else?
Okay, so they will not take the dogish. They prefer A-class vowels. So chametz and patak. Don't worry about it until next week. They prefer A-class vowels. Just remember it. And they cannot take a vocal shava. Also something we'll talk about next week. Those are vowel things. Those are vowel things. Next week is vowels. Now, Carolina, you had a question before class. Do you still want to ask it?
Yeah, and it was, why don't they technically count vowels as part of the alphabet that we're learning?
Okay. Carolina's question is, why aren't the Hebrew vowels counted as letters? And I'm going to say simplest answer, because they're not. Better answer is Hebrew originally, when they went to this alphabet, from a pictographic alphabet, from something like hieroglyphics, right? Pictures, pictograms. When they went to this alphabet, which is an Aramaic script, they did not use vowels at all, not written vowels. Just the letters as you see them, as presented today. The whole text is made up of just that. It's called unpointed Hebrew. Now,
Sanskrit, because they had dots and.
I can't speak to that. But about the 5th century AD, Common Era, 5th century, so think 500s, a group of Jewish scholars who are known as the Masoretes wanted to be able to display visually what they heard when they read the Hebrew text. And so they came up with a system in about 500 Common Era. And over the next 500 years, they codified and wrote the whole Hebrew Bible with vowel points. Not vowel letters, vowel points. Okay? Now, the Vav and the Yod and the He sometimes will carry a vowel in such a way that they're treated like a vowel. Don't worry about that until next week. The answer to Carolina's question is that the vowel points came long after, like 1,000 years after, like 1,100 years after the Hebrew adopted this script. Okay? When Israel was in captivity in Babylon, they were exposed to this script, and this became the way that they wrote Hebrew, this alphabet. Each of these letters has a predecessor that was more of a picture. That was just like the bed is like a picture of a house. Like you can kind of see that it's like a cave. There's the little doggish might be a person inside the house. The gimel, maybe this is a camel. Okay, they had pictures that were associated with them. And when they adopted this alphabet, this script, it didn't have vowels, not for another 1,100 years. Does that answer your question? Great. Wonderful. That's a good question, too. Now we're going to talk about letters that look alike and are easily confused. And this will help you when I'm talking about how we doing in time. We're doing good. All right. This will help you in writing your letters. Bet is easily confused with cough, especially if it's that small, huh?
Yeah, there's a little doodad on you.
Here we go. Here we go. This is my bed. Notice it's got a little tail. It's got a little foot, a little leg sticking off of the back of the shape. This is my cough. It's like a C. Backward C. Right to left C. Okay? See the difference? But if you're looking at a text, especially if it's a fancy text, it can be hard to identify the difference. A friend of mine snapped a picture of a Hebrew scroll that didn't have any vowels in it, and it was from an angle. And he said, "What reading is this?" Remember that? And it took me a long time because I was misidentifying a letter. And when I was misidentifying that letter, I misidentified a very important word. And as soon as I saw the word for what it was, I was like, "Oh!" And then I was able to find it very quickly. But these little distinctions will make a big difference when you're reading and when you're writing. So I ask you to pay attention. Bet has the foot, Kaf does not. Okay. Next is Gimel and Nun. Gimel down and has a foot on it, like this. That's like, I don't know what to call that, a forefoot. Nun starts with...
The way I remember it's like Y.
An upside down Y? Yeah, some people will draw their Gimel like this. I don't. I come straight down and then I put a forefoot on it.
But for me, the way to like remind is
That's great. If Yepsika's method of thinking of the Gimel as an upside down Y helps you, then it helps you. Nothing wrong with that. The Nun, though, is going to have the little top part. It's going to come down straight, and then it's going to have a flat foot. That's the Nun. See the difference between Gimel and Nun? But they look kind of similar in this text here, don't they? The thing is, the Gimel has that back leg and the front leg. This one just comes straight across. Okay, Hey and Chet. Which one's first? This is my Chet. Now here's how you can help me grade your homework. See the little roof, the little porch awning coming off the front of that Chet? That's good. Most important, though, is that this leg connects to the top. Okay? It connects to the top because the Hey does not. There's a space. Notice the space.
Still an awning, just a space.
There might be an awning, there might not. What's important is, but if you want me to know for sure that you've got a chet there, out that little awning that comes out, that little extra little bit, makes all the difference. Okay?
Leak and no
Almost
leak.
looks like the pie symbol.
Leak or no leak. Okay. Looks like what?
Almost looks like the pie
It's a
symbol.
pi, the P, right, okay. There's a Greek letter. Sheen and Seen. Sheen and Seen. Try and draw one a little bit more like the one on the board there. Sheen and Seen are the same, except that the Seen has the dot there. Don't get it wrong, Davis. I did. Or I didn't. And the Sheen has the dot on the right side. Okay? This looks intimidating. I'm just going to tell you. When you learn words with Sheen in them, you won't forget them.
so sin.
Sheen's the first one.
I have to look at it from
You have to look at any other direction.
Sheen has as you're looking at it, the dot is above the right side, and seeing the dot is above the left side. Like I've drawn it here.
Sin.
See?
See the Sheen.
Sin.
I'm going to have to speed up. So I'm not going to draw them unless it's something important. Yeah, I'll draw Sade and Ayin because they're tough. Okay, Samic and final mem. See how you can get that confused? Samic is round. That's why I draw my final mem, my mem sophite, in a blocky, square kind of way. All right? But I just chop the corner off right there and give it the little tittle. Now, the tittle is on both of those letters, but the Samic is round. The Dalet and the Resh. I am going to draw these. The Dalet has a little overhang off the back. The Resh, I draw it more in a flowing manner. See, look how square that is? I draw the Resh like that. Now, that's exaggerated. That's the thing, but I recognize that as a Resh, and the main thing is it doesn't have the little overhang. Okay? You'll find your handwriting will develop. You just need to make sure that you keep these letters separate because they look alike. Sadi and Ayin, for me, are hard to draw. So this is my Ayin. Oftentimes you'll see this comes way down to the bottom. People will draw that differently. That is my Ayin. I think of that as like a Y. My Sadi, though, I have to start on the other side, and I come down and across, and then I cut straight over for the bottom, and then I give it another arm. Sadi and Ayin. Now, there's some really fancy Ayins and fancy Sadis in books. Don't feel like you have to duplicate all of those little squiggles and curves. That's what I'm looking for. Sir?
I'm trying to remember how, like, one's flat and one's curved.
This is why I emailed you a sheet that had an example of the handwritten I learned, believe it or not, when I learned the alphabet, I did not learn block letters. I learned what we would call cursive letters. And years later, I pulled out a box of vocabulary cards, and I couldn't even identify the letters. Because they're so dissimilar to what's in the book. I chose, for your sake, to do block letters. Yes, ma'am.
There's different versions of the same stuff. Like you were just mentioning the cursive, and then within the Torah, they use different, I guess, forms for the same letters.
Well, they have the final forms, the Mem Sophit, the Nun Sophit, and such. But usually the typesetter who prints the Bible is going to determine the font, just like on your computer.
Oh, okay.
And then it's usually very consistent within, but you go from one Bible to another, and the letters may look very different. In fact, my friend who sent me a picture of what he was reading, it looked so different that I misidentified letters and couldn't read it. Okay. How are we doing? Vav and Zion. All right, so here's Vav. It's just a little top part in a straight line. And this is Zion. It's got a bigger diagonal, and that diagonal overhangs the body of the letter. Zion. Okay? And then Vav and Final Nun. Final Nun looks like this. It's like a Vav, but longer. It goes below the Y. You'll know it because it's the last letter of a word. Now, Vav often ends a word also. When you're learning the words, you're going to say them out loud, which I want to transition to that right now. Final Kaf, it looks like this. Just like the Final Nun, but it's got a bigger top on it. Questions? I'm almost out of time. Please turn to page 22. Page 22 is vocabulary. Starting at 3.12. If you recognize the letters, great. If you don't, okay. Because this is material for 2 weeks from now. These vocabulary words you don't need to know for 2 more weeks. But we're going to say them together. Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate you coming. I'll just take a phone call, I guess. Who's left her book?
You said page 22?
Page 22.
Looks like grammar rules.
Go down to the bottom of the page, paragraph 3.12, vocabulary.
All right.
Now, if you recognize the letters, great. If you don't, that's okay. This is an oral exercise. Are we ready? Just repeat after me. Of. Father. Of. Father. You really, if you say them out loud, I know it's boring. You say them out loud, you'll retain them. Here we go. Word number 2. Adon. Adon. Lord. Adon. Lord. You probably heard Adonai. I think that means Lord. It means my Lord. It's possessive. But that's how we talk about God, especially in this class. Adonai. Okay? Moving on. Adam. Man. And by man, we mean humankind. Adam.
That's
Man.
pretty easy. Sounds a lot like Adam.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that's what he was called. Human being.
Adam.
That's the best way to look at that chapter. And God made the human being from the dust. Right? Okay, here we go. Adamah. Ground. Yes, ma'am.
So we were reading in the beginning this, so that these two, like the Abba, then we have 2 more, like this one. What is this?
Okay.
Those are other forms of the same word. Those are other forms of the same word. And when we get to nouns, Yepsika, we're going to talk about how to make a noun plural and stuff. So she's talking about av, and it says avi
Yeah.
and avot.
Uh-huh.
And we'll just talk about that in chapter 3.
Okay.
Okay? Or chapter 4. Well, I think it's chapter 4 is nouns.
Right?
It's your book.
Is there a part in here that shows the pronunciation of these? Like I need the pronunciation.
So, no, and that's why I chose this book. because I don't want you to rely on an English transliteration of the Hebrew in order to be able to pronounce the Hebrew. If you want to know how to pronounce the Hebrew, you just learn how the letters are pronounced.
Okay.
Okay? Av, the first word, the Aleph is silent. It's got a vowel. You see that little plus under there, that little T underneath it?
Long A.
Okay? That is a comet. It's an ah sound. And Av is how you pronounce that word, because you've got the ah sound and the consonant, va, bait, without the dogish, Av. Okay?
And if I can do that, that's fine. At first I was like, okay,
Purpose of today's exercise is oral. You hear it and you say it. And in 2 weeks, I'm going to want you to know it. But I don't need you to know it today. I just need you to hear it and say it. Okay? Here we go. Adama. Adama. Notice the stress is on the last syllable. Except when it's not, the stress is always on the last syllable of a Hebrew word. Except when it's not. And you'll know when it's not, because I'm going to tell you, and after a while you'll be able to tell yourself, because you can see it in the word. Okay, here we go. Ach.
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 Brother.
Brother.
Ach.
Ach.
Brother.
Brother.
Achot.
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 Sister.
Sister.
Achot.
Achot.
Ish.
Ish.
Now look at that. See how that yod is in the middle there? That little dot before the yod is called a hirik yod, and that is a vowel. This is one time when the yod is treated like a vowel, and it's just ish. Ish. And it means man or husband. Ish.
Ish.
Man.
Man.
so how is Ish different from Adam?
Okay, Adam means human being or humankind. Ish specifically refers to a male in the role of a man or even a husband. Okay? There is a feminine equivalent to it, and I don't think it's a vocabulary word this week, but it's Isha.
It's here.
Isha, is it there?
Yeah. Isha.
Okay, so it's, where is it?
It's coming up after land.
It's coming up in a little while. There it is, further down. Okay. Ish,
Ish.
man, husband. Ale, ale like beer. Ale,
Ale.
not L, ale.
Ale.
God. Elohim,
Elohim.
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 Good. That's God. And that's the most common form for the word God in the Hebrew Bible, Elohim. Okay, Elohim. You can ask me why it's plural another day. Aim.
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 Mother. In modern Hebrew, you're going to hear Imah. And that's my mother. Imah. Okay. Eretz.
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 Land. Earth. Eretz.
Eretz.
Isha.
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 Woman. Woman. Come on now, say it.
Woman.
Isha.
Isha.
Woman.
Woman.
Bayit.
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 House.
House.
Bane.
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 Son.
Son.
Not Ben. Bane.
Bane.
Many times it's going to be Ben in the Bible, but there's a reason why. I'll tell you later. For now, Bane.
Bane.
Bat.
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 Daughter.
Daughter.
Bat.
Bat.
Daughter.
Daughter.
Davar.
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 I'm sorry. I did it wrong. Davar.
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 Word.
Word.
Sometimes thing. Yom.
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 Day.
Day.
Lila.
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 Look above the first lamed and see that little sideways caret, that accent mark?
Yep.
That tells you it's Lila, not Lila. That accent tells you where to place the emphasis on that first syllable. Lila.
Lila.
Na'ar.
Na'ar.
Hear how that ayin is kind of a stop? Na'ar.
Na'ar. Ah, I see.
That is, Na'ar is a boy, a youth. Na'ara.
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 Not
Na'ara.
Girl.
Girl.
Now that can mean a couple other things. Young unmarried woman, maid servant, na'ara. Notice it's so similar to na'ar. It is a female form of the same word. Okay? We won't talk about gender because we don't have time today. We'll get to that when we get to nouns. It's important. It's just not important for today. That's your vocabulary list. We just said it out loud. My expectations for memorization are low.
Today.
Let's just do it again. And we'll do it again the following week. And we'll do it again the following week. And you're going to be about 3 weeks ahead in vocabulary the whole time. Because by the time you have to translate it in a sentence, I don't want you to have to go look it up. I'm trying to save you time on your homework. So I'll give up time in class to do this kind of boring work, read vocabulary words, and then your homework will go well. May God bless you richly. We are so totally out of time, over time, and I really appreciate everybody's involvement and patience. Or anybody that says, I can't do this, don't want to do this for a year? No quitters on day one? Woo! Okay, great. So that means the books and the workbooks are yours. For next time, for next time, do the exercise in chapter 1, Hebrew alphabet. It's on page 1. Do not, unless you just want to, feel like you have to write the Hebrew alphabet 100 times. I'd like you to write it 20. And what you're focusing on is 2 things: memorization and getting down, writing them so that you can tell what they are. We'll worry about writing them so that I can tell what they are a little later. Okay? If you do it on a separate sheet of paper and you turn it in to me, then you won't tear up your workbook, and I'm all for that. But look, they just provided you blank pages to give 100 repetitions. And then on page 8, please do all of page 8. Okay? I don't care if you write them 10 times, write them enough times that you feel good about them, and show me. Okay? And then the section 3 says, give the names for each of the following Hebrew consonants that look alike. Guess what? If you don't remember, the names of these letters are in your book. Okay? So homework will be due at the beginning of class. Just drop them off. I won't look at them. We won't review them. But you can ask me questions at the beginning of class. And then we'll roll right into chapter 2 after we get done with Genesis chapter 1. We're going to do Genesis again.
So just to reiterate, the homework is the stuff on page 1 and page 8?
Page 1 and page 8.
Okay.
Write your Hebrew alphabet a bunch of times. I don't care if it's 100. 20 would be ideal, probably. And then do the exercises on page 8, and you're all set for next week. God bless you. I'll see you then.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That's your